I also want to speak to sometimes being open to that vision doesn't mean that you have to know exactly what's going to happen, or that you have to have it so detailed and so, laid out with this strategy and the action steps that you can't be open for things to change or shift or whatever that may look like. It doesn't have to be, 100% in stone. Leave it open for possibilities.
Welcome to the Bold Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Kinnell, and this is a space where bold moves meet inspired action. Join us as we dive into stories, strategies, and mindset of those who are building their dreams, creating impactful communities, and redefining success on their terms. Whether you're looking for practical business tips, a boost of inspiration, or a community that gets your vision, you are in the right place. Get ready to elevate your journey and embrace what it means to be a bold founder. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Bold Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Kinnell, and today I'm so excited to invite our guest, Ashley. She is a business and Instagram coach, podcast host, keynote speaker, and an award-winning event planner. Ashley is the powerhouse behind the Glow Getter Conference, which launched in 2014, and she also runs a luxury business retreat, including her next one up in Hawaii. Ashley's journey is so inspiring. She has moved across the country at 21 to start her business and has been empowering other entrepreneurs ever since. She's known for her one-day goals method, which helps entrepreneurs take their big dreams and turn them into actionable steps. I can't wait to dive in and have Ashley share her insights on how she's building community, creating a solid strategy, and making meaningful connections that transform your business. So I cannot wait to dive in with you. Ashley, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. We were just talking before, but I cannot wait for you to share all about the business strategies that you put in. I love how you map out your year, and you also have a mid-year review. So we're going to talk about that. I love how you use community and your events and retreats. There's so much information I cannot wait to dive into. So I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited too. Everything that you just said, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to talk about. It lights me up. So thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Amazing. Okay, so I have a list of a list of questions that I want to go through. Okay, so I want to know more about your one-day goals and tell us what that is. How can we do that? Why is it so effective?
Okay. So one of the things that I have learned over the years in my own goal setting is, and also working with entrepreneurs and other women and hearing this phrase we use so often, one day I'm going to do this. One day I'm going to achieve this, or one day I'm going to see this, or I'm going to go there. One day is used so often. And it's something that we say yeah, maybe one day we'll be able to do that. And it's often associated with something that seems far-fetched and seems unrealistic right now. And we have no idea how we're going to get there, but we just hope to do it one day. So when I started thinking about this, I have a really funny story I'll share about my conference last year and what happened with it. And but going back a little bit further, I recognized that anytime I had a goal, and even if it seemed scary, there was different parts. I kind of created this method around how I would actually achieve a goal that seemed big and scary and maybe far-fetched or long-term down the road. So what I noticed is there was three steps behind it. So step one is, if you have this goal, do some research to see what it actually takes. Yes, maybe it is a very long-term goal. Maybe it's something you have to work towards. But until you know exactly the steps you have to take, it does seem even bigger and scarier. Now, as soon as I have done the research step on anything, any goal I've ever set, I have quickly realized that it is actually a lot more achievable as soon as I break it down. So step two then always goes into the strategy. So what are the action steps I need to take? And then three is taking the action on those. So what do you do next? Once you know what you have to do and how you're going to get there, even if it does take years, it doesn't mean every goal means it's going to happen tomorrow, but you have a better idea. You have more clarity on what it works and how you'll get there. So when I was thinking about relaunching my conference, so I ran I had a different name for it. I renamed it to the Glow Getter last year. Prior to that, I called it the Empower Women in Business Conference. And I ran that from 2014 to 2018. And then I took a pause. Then COVID happened and all that. And so I was like, okay, one day and this is where it gets funny, one day I want to bring my conference back. One day I want to relaunch it. I love the power of it. I love the the energy when you get women entrepreneurs together in one room is like no other. I know you know this so well, Jen. And so I just was literally obsessed with that idea. And I was like, okay, one day I'm going to do this. So last year in March, I was actually working on a client's event in Jasper Park Lodge. And I said while I was there, one day I would love to bring an event here, like to do my own event here. It would be so incredibly beautiful. I love the mountains. I love the water that's there. So it's like my two loves together, water and mountains. And so I was like, one day, and I said to the representative from the Fairmont, one day I'm going to do an event here. And she's like, well, tell me more. Like, what do you have in mind? I was like, well, the thing is whenever I do my conference, I always bring in a celebrity keynote speaker. And with that, I have to do some really big planning. Like that doesn't just, happen within a few weeks and get all those details figured out. So she's like, okay, well, here's some information. Let me know if you decide in the future. So I remember going home and I think it was like a few days later, and in like the middle of the night, I woke up ridiculously early one morning, and that's why I call it the middle of the night because I'm more of a night owl. But I woke up and I was just like, okay, if I were to do this conference again, who would I want? And I was like, well, I know who my one day goals are. Like, I have these big dream speakers from the US, and I've only worked with Canadian speakers. So I was like, I wonder what that looks like. And I was like, well, you know your own method, Ashley. You've got to do some research. So it was like 5 in the morning and I sent off some emails and I was like, I'm just going to see, just it's my research phase. I got to see what these speakers cost, what it would look like, even if they consider Canadian, like coming to Canadian events, what that is. And that was on a Wednesday. By Friday, I heard back from my dream speakers team and said, I actually think she'd be really interested in this. Can you send us more information? And I was like, okay, this one day goal is happening a lot faster than I was expecting. And so I had to send this like insanely detailed email over the weekend. So I spent all weekend writing it. I sent it off Monday morning and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just wild to me. And within 2 hours, I personally heard back from this celebrity keynote speaker, which ended up being the amazing Jenna Kutcher. And it was just, to me, it was so crazy because one minute I'm just thinking about this one day goal. And the next minute I'm just researching. And then the next minute she's going, yes, I love what you're doing. Let's do it. And I'm going, oh, this is happening a lot faster. So sometimes that happens with one day goals, but that's one of my best examples because sometimes when you start researching it and recognizing, oh, this actual goal or dream is possible and doable, like you start taking those steps and you can make things happen. So that's where it all began last year.
I really love that because I do think that we have this idea in our head and then it's like it gets stuck there because we don't want to take action on it because we're scared. But it's amazing when you start taking those steps, like little ones, like, oh, I'll just send an email. And then someone's like, sure, I'll do it. You're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't think this could even happen. And
Right.
like, I just think it's so magical what happens when we get out of our own comfort zone and we put ourselves out there. And then when somebody says yes to you and you're like, oh, because I don't think we see our own power. And so those are just like reaffirmations. Is that the right word?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It just like actually says, yes, you are amazing and people see you and they want to be part of what you're doing. So I think it's so powerful. I love that so much.
Thank you. It was magical. And it was just like again, like that reminder of okay, we can look at our one day goals and we can see what's possible. And it's taking that action and just doing the research, doing the strategy and figuring out what steps need to be done. And of course it didn't just like magically happen. Like there was a lot of work that had to go into it too. So
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. It
Yeah.
wasn't just like she said yes and then it all just happened. But like there was a lot of action and strategy behind it, but it did make it possible. And so sometimes it's just starting with, okay, what is that one day goal that we have? And what kind of research do we need to figure out? Like I've heard people do it before with like, oh, one day I'm going to get this dream vehicle. And I'll often say, okay, so like, what does that look like? Oh, I don't know. I've never actually looked to see how much it is, or, I've never actually went to look at it and see if I actually like it. And, those kinds of things. So how do you know if that's exactly what you want, or if it is possible, if you haven't done that research yet to find out?
Well, and I think talking about that also is like I was asked this year, or is it last year, to really look at my vision. What is my overall vision? And I was like,
Mhm.
I don't want to say what it is. Like what if I'm wrong? Like what if I say I want this, but then it changes to that? Like and I had
Yeah.
a hard time putting that down, but I think once you like leave it out open, like you do the research, you
Mhm.
figure it out, but once you put that out there, it makes a world of
Mhm.
difference.
Yes, exactly. It's like what that quote says, a dream written down becomes a plan, becomes a goal, and then backed by a plan, yeah, becomes a reality. And I just love that because it's so true, right? Sometimes, and I also want to speak to sometimes being open to that vision doesn't mean you have to know exactly what's going to happen or that you have to have it so detailed and so laid out with a strategy and the action steps that you can't be open for things to change or shift or whatever that may look like. It doesn't have to be 100% in stone. It like leave it open for possibilities because like our beautiful friend Sheetal says, this or something better, right? So it could be this or something better.
I always find that it is something better. If it makes you shift, you're like, oh, I don't want to. And then the end result is incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about your sales and marketing strategies. So you're really, really good at creating like the sales and marketing strategies in such a way that feels really good and like to like down to your heart. So what are some key pieces of advice that you would want to give somebody who's kind of feeling stuck or disconnected from their audience?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so I love sales and marketing. As you said, I just find it so fun. So one of the biggest pieces of advice that I would give when it comes to sales and marketing is that entrepreneurs tend to get into the overwhelm of everything going on in their businesses and wearing multiple hats. I don't think I really know a single entrepreneur that only has one hat to wear. There's always multiple roles and different things we're doing. But what often happens with that is that we end up feeling very bogged down. It's stressful. There's a lot of moving parts. And one thing I've noticed is that we tend to lose the fun in our business and we tend to lose the why are we doing this? And we look back and we're like, oh, well, we were doing it for freedom and time freedom. And it's always that funny joke that they say, like, entrepreneurs, I didn't quit the 9 to 5 to work 24/7, but that's what we end up tending to do sometimes.
Yeah.
So what I love to go back to is how can you find ways to have fun in your business? And what can you do with your audience to not only have fun but connect with them? So this year has been extremely difficult in my personal life with a lot of crazy things happening that were out of my control. But one of the things that were important to me was to show up in a new way that I haven't before, which was very in a vulnerable way, and how I could also make that connection with them. And looking at the end of this year, I am looking back and I'm reflecting and I'm also connecting with my audience over, okay, this year's been a tough one. This has not been the greatest year for me personally, but how can we have fun? Like, how can we get to the end of this year as entrepreneurs, knowing that this is often a very stressful and busy time of the year? We're also thinking about what's ahead for the next year and, come January, what are we doing? And I'm trying to remind entrepreneurs of how can we have fun. So what can you do in your offers, your products, your services to have fun with you? I mean, maybe that's creating something new. Maybe that means putting a different spin on it. Maybe it's sharing why you created that offer in a new way and talking about it and talking about it from the heart and talking about your why of it. Because I think sometimes we get so focused on, oh, we got to talk about pain points and we got to talk about the strategy and all those not so fun things to talk about. What can we talk about that really brings in connection as well? So how can we have fun? How can we have and build that connection with our community? Those would be my biggest tips and what to really focus on, especially this time of year.
I love that because I think you're 100% right that the overwhelm of your business can actually take you out of the fun of it. And I do have to remind myself all the time, like I'm like, okay, I have all this stuff to get done, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like it actually is just the overwhelm. But when I sit down and do it, I'm like, oh, I love what I do.
Yeah.
I get overwhelmed by my list, right? But when I
Exactly.
sit down and I do it, I'm like, oh, this is fun, and I get to be creative, and I get to create
Hmm.
reels, and like I love it. So I think we just have to go back into why we're doing it, what makes it fun, and really focus on that and
Yeah.
shift.
Exactly, exactly. And anytime I'm having fun and like my audience knows, like when I'm lit up and excited about something, when I'm playful and having fun with it, they know and like they reach out. And even after the hard times I had personally this year, and when I would say, let's bring the fun back, and I started, showing more of my playful side again and doing the fun kind of, I don't know, just the way I show up, having fun on social media and what I'm offering. I get messages all the time going, it's nice to see you like having fun again, or, your playful side's coming back. It's so nice to see you smile. And people are paying attention. They're watching what you're doing and how you're feeling and what your energy is. And I wouldn't say like I'm an energy coach, but they do notice that, right? Your audience notices it. And what other thing I would just remind people is that when you think of your audience, a lot of the times we think, okay, it's just like a bunch of numbers. But it's actually real people behind your social media accounts that are following you. And so they're not only paying attention to what you're offering, but they're paying attention to your energy, how you show up, if you're enjoying what you're doing, and all of that. So that's where I find it really important, especially when you're building that connection.
I love it. And yeah, I love that you just dove basically into my next question. But like I really do admire how you show up on Instagram, and I can really see your audience, like they adore you. And I think that is so powerful. Because Instagram is a hard platform. And this is like my whole
Mm-hmm.
business is built on Instagram, but
Mm-hmm.
it is a hard platform when it comes to that algorithm, and that algorithm
Yeah.
making you feel like, ugh, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
love how you don't really, do you not look at it, or do you just like you don't care, you focus more on the people? Like I love the fact you said also it's about the people, not the numbers.
Yeah.
So like is
Yeah.
that the way you're looking at it?
Definitely. And I think I've done that from day one. Like it's never been, yeah, it's exciting as you see your audience grow and you see the numbers go up, but I think anytime I reflect back on the people that are there, the connections, the community, numbers really mean nothing to me in that sense. Whereas I see so many accounts, I have actually had clients of mine that have had close to 100,000 followers and have zero engagement, and they're very disconnected from their community. They're not having any conversations and all of that. And I would much rather have 100 or 1,000 followers that I'm talking to on a regular basis and I have genuine connection and
Yeah.
conversations and relationships with. So for me, that's like the importance of building that. So I think my focus, especially this year through the hard times and talking so vulnerably, without even realizing and recognizing it, I was really focused on building relationships and community over it. And sometimes that vulnerable shares that we do, like you said, Instagram it's tough. There's the algorithm. There's also the whole idea behind Instagram being this like picture perfect highlight reel, right? And
Mhm.
when I couldn't do that this year and I had to show up more vulnerable than ever, and it wasn't really by choice, it was just the times that I was in and the seasons I was going through, it opened up my eyes to more of that vulnerability creates that connection, and it opened up conversations that I probably would have never had with so many people, or even just stories that I would have never even heard of, that other people had gone through something similar and they were relating to this and they were just appreciating even just seeing something that wasn't the highlight reel. It wasn't me saying, oh, I'm in a hard season, but just trying to show up perfectly and just trying to sweep everything under the rug and say everything's good. Like I would share the good and the bad. And then I'd also relate it back to entrepreneurship, because that's really what entrepreneurship is. We have such a roller coaster in entrepreneurship, of good and bad. So it was a great example of that, and also how our businesses are also tied to our personal lives. And that's one thing I think where this vulnerability sharing kind of comes in. Is it's interesting because for so long we had this highlight reel and we didn't really talk about vulnerability. We just tried to show up and share what we offered and talk about how great it was, and try to look at seeing who would be interested in buying. And now it's like, okay, so I'm a person, you're a person, yes, we have businesses, but there's still people and a name and a face behind these businesses. And we're humans after all, and how can we build those connections as well? And through all of that, I have built some of the most amazing connections with clients this year because of it. So,
Yeah. Okay, so talking about that community aspect, how are you
mhm,
weaving in your offers and your promotions into it? Because I do find that you can build the community, but as soon as you post anything business related, it's like your
mhm,
engagement just kind of goes, "Whoop." And
mhm,
like certain people, the people who are meant to see it will continue to follow. And I
yep,
understand this algorithm, but from a non-social media expert kind of a perspective, it's like,
mhm,
what is going on? So how do
yeah.
you integrate that, and how do you deal with that struggle?
So, one of the things I think it's interesting because it comes back to the fun and it comes back to your why. So, what I've noticed and I've learned in my years of doing it, even just this year, is, or even the last few years, let's go back to the idea of the conference. So, when I designed the conference, I walked my community through everything. I took them behind the scenes of like, I think I just confirmed a speaker. Like, I don't know what's happening, but I think I'm bringing this event back. Like, here's a date, but this is all you guys get right now because this is all I've got. And like, you're going to walk through this journey with me on, okay, I've got a speaker and now I've got another one and I've secured the location. And it was just having so much fun with it and bringing them along on the journey. And so I think that would be also my biggest recommendation is taking them along the journey of, creating something new. I have had clients that have written books, and so that's what they're doing as they're writing, as they're going through the publishing process. Like, I really recommend take them through everything, show them everything you're working on and all the behind the scenes and the good and the bad. It doesn't have to be all like picture perfect. But one of the things I would just say is really take your audience and your community on the journey with you through everything you do. And bring them into your why. So another example is I created my retreat this year in my dream location of Hawaii. And I have had this on like a bucket list kind of goal idea for a very long time. I just really wanted to go to Hawaii, actually. So in January, I shared that to my community. I said, one day I'm going to go to Hawaii, you guys. It looks so beautiful there. And I had somebody in my community reach out and say, well, why don't you just do an event there? Like, you could just do like a retreat or your conference. And I was like, why can't I do that? That could be fun. And very quickly, the idea of doing a retreat was like born. And so from there, it just kind of like the community was like, oh, you're going to do that? Okay. And then all of a sudden it started happening and it came into play. And again, they were a part of the journey. They were there with me from the beginning and they got to see my why.
Oh, you dropped so many nuggets there. Okay, so I love actually, I 100% agree. It actually is way more fun when you take them on the journey and you get to
Mm-hmm.
share things with them and then they become invested in like the planning of it, which
Yes.
is my favorite. But I'm also at the same time, I'm like, oh, but I don't want to give you any secrets. Like not secrets, but like I want there to be an element of surprise. And so I think
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, I want to tell you, but I don't want to give you too much. But I
Right.
do think that it is probably way more fun to show all the things and then also show the behind the scenes because
Yeah.
sometimes there's like we were just talking about you sit there with this idea in your head. I mapped out my entire year for next year for the Bold Founders events, and
Yeah.
I was like, these are the people, the speakers I want, and I just kind of like sat there and I was like, okay, I gotta reach out to these people.
I
So
love it.
and then I just like one day I was like, that's it, I'm doing it right now. It was like late at night. I was having a glass of
Yeah.
wine and I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna send them all out and then we'll go from there, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's that over getting over the fear.
Yeah.
But I think sharing those pieces
Mm-hmm.
are really powerful because people realize that they're not alone
Yeah.
in feeling like that overwhelm and going after the big
Exactly.
dreams and stuff. So I really love that
Exactly.
you're doing that. And then that also integrates into your strategy, even though it doesn't feel like a strategy, it doesn't feel like
Right.
sales.
No, exactly. And it comes back to like just having fun. Like, and when I get lit up about something, I know my community gets lit up because they can feel my excited, playful energy coming out. And I keep thinking back to last year and when I created this event and I was like, oh my God, this is happening. And of course, like they could see that I was working on a 1 day goal of mine, right? So it was me really putting into action what I teach and talk about and sharing this. And so it, like you said, it just, they get invested and they get excited about it. And that's exactly what you want your community to do, right? You want them to be, like you said, also not only invested, but a part of it. They get to feel like they were like, oh, maybe they were decision makers or they helped influence something. I would ask questions. Do you guys think I should do this or that? Like, it was really great to see that and then watch them see it come to life as well. So that made it even more fun.
And I like that you're listening to them. Like when they're
Yeah.
saying we would like to do a Hawaii retreat, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, we could actually make this happen. Like this is
Yep.
pretty cool. So I think that's just honestly so incredible. And I think that speaks volumes to the community that you have built.
Thank you. I love my community so much, and I pretty much would do anything for them. I think they know
Yeah.
that. And I love, again, I think the listening is really important. There's a lot of people that, maybe put polls out and ask their community for things and feedback, but they don't ever listen. So they never feel heard. And I think that's another part of it is that my community always feels really heard. And I often joke, I know within our group with Selena, that we joke about I have this DM problem, and it's a true DM problem, but it's like such a good problem. I just have this like guilt feeling of just feeling like I can't always get back to everybody as quickly as I want to. Um, but I think no matter what, I will always get back to them and they will always feel seen and heard with me. And that's really important to me and not something maybe everybody thinks about as entrepreneurs, but it's really, really important.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. And I think that I know that whenever you do respond, you have like your heart is always in every message. Like you can
Thank
just
you.
feel it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. One time, a long time ago, I had a coach tell me I should think about automating it and like giving it my DMs to an assistant. I was like, I could never do that. And I've had lots of people say like, what do you, even clients saying, do you recommend that I like pass off my social media and like even DMs? And I'm like, always no. I would never ever want anybody to feel like they're sharing something personal with me, like business related, personally, anything like that, anything that would be confidential, and then have to worry that there might be somebody else reading that. To me, it was just like, no, that feels icky.
Yeah.
So it may take me a while to get back to everybody, but I always do my best.
I know. And then you see them at an event. It's like, oh, well, I talked to you about this. And you're like, what?
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
That would be awful.
That would be awful. I know. So, okay. So, what do you think has been vital for your thriving business? Or how has your community been vital for your thriving business?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Community. I feel like I wouldn't be able to create the things I do without having the community. And again, I think that comes back to so many of the things we talked about, like hearing them, understanding what they're looking for, getting a good sense of where they need help, maybe what they are looking for support in. So to me, listening and having them feel seen and heard is number one priority, but also recognizing what I have fun with. So if I were to just hear them but not be excited about what I was hearing, or that I was going to create from what I was hearing, I think that would be a really big struggle for me. So I have to make sure that I really enjoy what I'm doing too. So that would be my advice, is make sure it's something that's fun and lights you up, and then ask your community about, what is it that they'd be looking for out of that, if it's a product or service. And yeah, I think it goes back to having fun. Have fun with what you do. Find your playful side. Show up with the good and the bad in your community. Talk about it all as much as you're comfortable. It doesn't, I will say, vulnerability sharing on social media is not for everybody. And sometimes we want our own privacy. Sometimes we don't want to share about everything we do in our day to day. And I do recognize that, because I have had clients that are saying, you show up about everything. I just don't know if I feel comfortable with that. And it's not for everybody. And I do understand that. There are ways of doing it as well, where you can share without sharing everything. You don't have to physically share everything you're doing in a day. For me, it's what's built really amazing relationships and connections in my community. But there's still ways of doing it that you can build that. And yeah, just have those conversations, build those. And the last thing I would say is, don't forget about the community you already have. So many entrepreneurs get really focused. I got to grow the numbers. I got to get, I got to hit 5K. I got to hit 10K. I got to hit 20K. My big goal is 100,000 followers. And what happens is, a lot of the times business owners get so focused on they need to find new people that they forget about who's already there. And then those people end up not feeling seen and heard anymore. They don't feel like they were valued or they're important, because the entrepreneur is trying to find more people. So definitely going back to recognizing who's already in your community first.
I really, really love that, because I think I agree with you. A lot of people focus on the growth,
Mm-hmm.
and the people that are already in your community, they already love you and adore you and are interested in what you're doing. So why not nurture that relationship?
Exactly. Exactly. Like, honestly, if I could keep everybody in my community just like perfectly as is right now, I would die a happy woman just with my community as is. I don't need hundreds of thousands. I have what I feel like one of the best communities out there. So I am totally happy with that. And I just want to remind entrepreneurs, just love on the people you have there already.
Yeah. This conversation is the best. Like, it's making me so happy. Okay,
Oh,
so
that's
I
so
want to
sweet.
dive into your events, because I
Okay.
love obviously I love the event space, but I want to talk about the Go Getter, the retreats. They're honestly, like, what you're doing is so inspiring to me and probably to very, like, a lot of people. But can you share why these events are so impactful for yourself, but also for your community?
Definitely. Well, one thing I would say when I think back to relaunching my conference is, I always felt like I love the online world. Obviously, I coach online and I talk about online and I teach a lot about online building your business, but there's something so impactful about in person, as you know as well. And so what I've noticed is that I still remember the very first event that I did in 2014. I brought in Arlene Dickinson from Dragon's Den, and it ended up being 308 women in that room, and it was packed to the brim. At one point, the venue was like, should we put seats out in the like lobby and bring screens in? I was like, no, that's a terrible idea. Let's not do that, because I wanted everybody all in the same room. And so when they did get there, I was like, oh my God, like the energy you feel in this room of women that are excited to see each other and meet each other. And that goes back to even my idea last year when I had this vision of Jasper and doing it at the Jasper Park Lodge and having these women come in from all over. Back when I first started the conference in 2014, Instagram wasn't around yet. So fast forward to the Jasper one of my biggest visions was, if anybody has not been to Jasper Park Lodge before, it's a beautiful property that is all basically cabins and different buildings that have different rooms in it, but it's all on like a property that's kind of spread out. And my vision for it was, people are going to be walking around and going, I know you from Instagram, or I feel like I know you, or like we've never met in person, but I follow you, or we've talked there. And that's all I could imagine, was like these women being so excited to get to meet each other in real life and like connect and take selfies and talk about how maybe they could collaborate and just who knows who, and like who can like connect with who. And that's all I could vision. And when it came to life and that's what I got to witness, it was so much fun. And I was like, this is why in-person events are still very important. Like, I love the online world, I do. And you do get to meet people from all over. And then when you get to meet them in person, it's even more exciting. So that's one of the things I love about these events. Now, when you think about the conference versus the retreat, the conference is more about the community coming together, I find. It's about people getting to connect and hear inspiring stories and just do like, it's like a big community event. Whereas the retreats are something that I wanted to create that was a little more intimate and one-on-one time. So my only regret from the conference last year was that I did not have the time or capacity to see every single person there. And I wanted to so bad. And I'd had messages after going, I'm so sorry I didn't get to meet you in person. I was like, I wish I could have been just everywhere. But the retreat idea is that I get to spend one-on-one time with people, that I only have 8 to 10 people at these events, and it's just very intimate. We can talk one-on-one. As you know, I love strategy. I live for strategy. And when someone tells me a goal, it's like, all right, like, let's get to it. How are we breaking this down? I love my Post-it notes. Those will come out, and it's like, we are going to talk about that. And my Post-it note idea originally came from this idea of when I hired my first assistant back many years ago now. I needed to share with her everything in my brain. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to do it. So I ended up using Post-it notes to map out everything I was doing, everything I wanted to do, and how we were going to make it happen. And I recognized I could do this with my clients and talk about what we're going to do and work on their strategy, but visualize it. Because us women are very visual. We want to see what it is that we're doing now and where we want to go. And you kind of think about an airplane going from, point A to point B, and what's the roadmap there. And so, so that's where that all kind of came from with the retreat, and wanting just a bit more of an intimate experience where we could work on that together, but still in a group setting that allows brainstorming and collaboration and connection that way too. So that's how those two events kind of work for me.
I love how no matter what, like, community is infused in everything that you do. So I think it's really powerful that you're thinking about not only like the logistics of the conference, but like the experience that people are going to get when they walk even just down those like paths outside in front with the lake view. And
yes,
I
exactly.
think that's amazing. And I'm a huge advocate for hosting events and hosting events that really create an impact and experience for people from beginning to end, not just like the moment you sit down. It's like the whole package. So I love how you infuse that.
Oh, thank you.
So for someone who is considering hosting their own event, what's one thing that they should prioritize to make it both impactful and aligned with their brand and business?
Okay. Well, it goes back to one of the things you said about like from beginning A to B. I remember when I first started doing events with weddings and nonprofit events, one of the things I always talk to people about was, when you're thinking of an event, think about from your either client or your event attendees experience from beginning to end. So what's going to happen from the moment they buy a ticket to the moment that they leave the event and afterwards, and the impact that they're going to have. So let's just say like the conference last year, we ended up having a speaker that wasn't able to make it in person, which was totally fine in the event world. We figured that out. And we ended up doing an after conference session about, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 weeks later. And it was such an amazing way to like connect with them after the event as well. So we really like stretched the whole experience out from beginning to end. So if somebody was thinking about that, I always encourage them to think about it from the attendee's perspective. What are they going to experience from the time that they, and even when they work with you, like a client works with you, what are they experiencing from the beginning until at the end? Like onboarding, offboarding is like the terms in coaching world.
Mhm.
But what is it that they're going to experience? And how can you make this like the most impactful for them? But also, how can you make sure they feel heard and seen the entire time? So from the moment that they're in, this is something I do with any time a client's in. Like I will give them a shout out on social media. I will send them a welcome message. I often send a personalized voice note and say like, I am so excited. Like I am personally so excited that you are here, that you're going to be joining. I did that a lot with the conference last year. Somebody'd buy a ticket, I'd send them a message. And they were just like in awe that I'd be like reaching out through busy times. And it's like, but that's again, the feeling seen and heard. That's really important to me. And so your community doing the same thing for anybody thinking of an event, your community jumps in, like you let them know, like you see them, you're so excited to have them there, to be a part of it, and how much you value them for them even trusting in you to say yes. So that's what I would say when you're thinking about creating an event. Think about that experience from the attendee's perspective, and also think about what experience you would want as an attendee. What would you like out of it? What was it that, like a welcome message, maybe having something there waiting at the event with your name on it. I know that you did something beautiful like that with your event that you recently had, right? So those little touches mean so much to so many.
Mhm.
And if you can think about what you would enjoy as an attendee, what would that look like? And again, it comes back to feeling seen and heard and feeling valued when you're there.
This makes me so happy because like it is hard to get those like personal like welcome messages. That is a hard thing to stay on top of when you're already planning everything else that goes with it.
Yeah.
And so I think that is I just it's so powerful, but I also think the fact that you always come back to feeling seen and heard and welcomed, and I think that's something that gets lost in the hustle. And
It
I'm
does.
I'm guilty of that. Like I did not do welcome messages for my
Oh,
conference,
that's
but now that I've
okay.
heard you say this, I'm like, that's so awesome. And I love all
Right?
those personal things, but they do
Yeah.
get lost.
Yeah.
But you can tell why your community is like your community loves you so much because you do think
Mhm.
about those experiences, not just from the event perspective, but also
Yeah.
from the social media and how you show up and the energy you
Yeah.
bring. So I
Thank
think that's
you.
that's probably like my biggest takeaway here is like honestly just making sure that your community as they are like no
Mhm.
don't even think about growing feels
Yeah.
seen and heard always and
Yeah.
valued and important.
Exactly. And one of the things that like I know I love is like voice messages. And one of the things I dislike a lot is the unpersonalized generic messages that people copy and paste in DMs, and you're like, nope, that does not feel like authentic or real. And I often think back like, okay, I love voice messages. I know I love when I receive voice messages. It feels like somebody is like directly thinking about me, maybe is answering my question specifically, or like a welcome message at an event, that kind of thing. I think those go such a long way in building connections and relationships with your community. So yeah, I love doing that. And you're so right that in the event planning world, and I know you know this so well, is that logistics and event planning, especially when we take on our own, let alone a client's, there's
Yeah.
so many details. And like, you know, entrepreneurs think entrepreneurship is bad. Wait till you add in events and have 100 details to think about, and so many different things. And if you can go back to feeling seen and heard with your community and your attendees, you're going to make an event that is one to remember, because event planners don't often think about that, especially in corporate events, right? You don't think about those kinds of details. You think about, yes, the look, the decor, like that kind of experience, which is amazing and it's important too. But when you think about the personal touches, that's what people remember.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Okay, so switching from the event perspective, I want to go more into your business planning because I know that you always do like your annual business planning, but you also do a
Mm-hmm.
mid-year planning.
Oh, yes.
And so, how can people intentionally build the community aspect into their business plans? Because I think your business is entirely community like focused.
Yeah, it really is. That's a good question. Okay, so what I do and what I've learned to do with what I offer. So, one thing I've noticed, especially in entrepreneurship, is that we often get gung ho at the beginning of the year. It's like fresh start, new beginning, new goals, let's go. Like, it's a new year ahead, new calendar year. Maybe we just finished up year end. So, we're like, okay, new targets, new sales goals. all the things. And so I do love it because I love January for new energy and new excitement. And we can get that fun, playful energy in ourselves as well, because it feels like this blank slate that we can create from. The reason why I created the mid-year reset was because oftentimes we get through those first few months of the year and we're like, okay, maybe things haven't gone exactly how we wanted yet, or maybe we haven't achieved those goals, or, maybe things have shifted, something has changed, we have a new idea, something didn't work that we initially thought it was going to. The mid-year reset is so perfect for going, okay, let's just pause for a minute and actually reflect back on what has happened in the first 6 months and decide, okay, what do we want from the rest of the year now? So we're like at that mid-year, we're in that midway point. What do we want to achieve? And one of the questions I always ask is, if I'm sitting here on December 31st, which this year is coming up really fast, what is it that I want to look back at this year and be like, this is what I did? Like, and I feel really good about it. This is what I achieved. This is what I worked on. This is what I accomplished. Maybe I didn't finish a goal, but I got really close to it, or, this is what I did. And I feel really, really happy about that. I can go into the new year feeling really good. So that's where I like having these two touch points and reminders. And something that I'm doing this year is I'm actually selling them as a package, because that way they come together, right? Like, you have the beginning of the year and we can map things out, but then we have that check-in point to say, okay, where are we actually at? Let's be honest. Let's see what's worked, what hasn't. And sometimes it's like, oh my God, things happen in a whole other way. And now that totally shifts what I want to do for the rest of the year, because all of these other magical things that I wasn't even planning for happened. Or maybe I had a new idea or something else, another direction I want to go in. And as you know, in entrepreneurship, things are always shifting and changing, and we might roll in a new direction and that kind of thing. So what I really love about having the mid-year is it's just a great time to pause and do a bit of a reset if needed, and adjust what we really want to focus on. So I've seen it go both ways, where, the first part of the year didn't go as great as they had planned. And then I've also seen where it's like something is like this or something better happened. And now it's like, okay, I've got to adjust what I want from the rest of the year. So
yeah, for sure. I think that I agree 100% that definitely, like, the world is going to shift and it's going to change your plans. It, like, I don't know if it's just me, but it's like never fails, things shift constantly and you're having to change it. Maybe my, like, I don't know, organized, I want it to go this way checklist sort of a thing gets in the way, but like, I agree, it never goes the way it's supposed to. And so I think having that mid-year really allows you to reflect on what your goals were, or if you've achieved them, and what your goals are going forward. And also when your goals in January are different than your goals that are going to be in the fall, because it's like a fully different season of your business, right? Different time for even your customers who are coming in. So it's nice to have that mid-year and see if things are sticking, see if you need to adjust or go harder. Like, it's just great to be able to have that little extra time to focus in.
Definitely.
Okay, so then what do you think, for people who have these goals, what is a good way for them to be accountable? Like, what is one of your favorite ways to help entrepreneurs stay consistent and focused to achieve these?
Oh, that's a good question. And that's something that comes up often because entrepreneurship is also busy, right? Like, we wear so many hats, we have so much going on. How do we stay on top of that? So one thing I just wanted to say about the beginning of the year and the mid-year reset is we also do that in community. So those events are in community, where it is online, but it is something that we hear from others and we hear what everybody is either working on or thinking of or dreaming of. And so I find it often very inspiring. And so, yeah, so then moving forward into that, I just think, so sorry, so many thoughts with that. What was the last question again?
Okay, so what was one message or piece of advice that you would leave oh, sorry, I'm totally jumping now. See, we're both all over the place.
So many things to talk about.
I know, we have too many things going on. So it was about accountability. So what are one of your favorite ways to help entrepreneurs stay consistent and focused?
Okay, that might be right now. Yes. To stay focused. No. So one thing I would say is, again, I would say find community. So it doesn't have to necessarily mean with me. But one thing that I find that is really helpful is having someone, at least someone. So either a coach or some kind of community group that you can connect with. Maybe you're just starting your business right now, and maybe a coaching program isn't exactly in budget, but maybe you know of another entrepreneur that you can connect with and just say, these are my goals, what are your goals? Let's like hold each other accountable and check in on each other. I know over years I've done that with like entrepreneurial friends and saying, do you want to just check in on each other and say like, hold each other accountable, but also ask like, do we need support in any ways? And when I started joining masterminds myself, then I started recognizing we have that accountability in there, right? We can connect with somebody. I've also seen it in when I've done like my planning party in January and the mid-year reset. I've seen people connect in the chat and say, do you want to hold each other accountable? Like let's stay connected on Instagram, that kind of thing. One of the questions I often ask in there is, who can hold you accountable? So if you're not in a program or in, some kind of community, who is it that maybe you could reach out to? Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a best friend. What is it that you can do that way? So there are options. I would never say, oh, you have to be in a group to do this. I would always say, find someone that you feel comfortable sharing your goals with, and ask them to hold you accountable and ask if you can do the same. So of course the new year is a great time when everybody's thinking about their new goals, to look for someone like that. And then if you are further into business and you know that you're looking for that extra support, then look for a coach. It doesn't have to be me. Just look for a coach that feels right for you in the area that you're looking to grow in and hold yourself accountable in. Maybe it's a group program that you can also be in company with similar, if it's entrepreneurs, similar like-minded, say women entrepreneurs, for example, that are maybe working on growing their business online, or maybe it's a brick and mortar group, or things like that, or specific to your industry that you're in. Finding someone that you can hold accountable, but also talk openly about those goals and dreams that you have. That's one other thing. And I think that's something too, like our group this year, it's like also being able to share vulnerably. So finding a safe space is really important. I think if you go into a group and you don't feel safe, that's not going to help you any, because if you're not feeling safe, you're not going to be able to share openly. You're not going to share vulnerably, and you're going to struggle to talk about your goals and where you're at right now and what you could do to move forward.
Yeah, and our goals are they're very deep and right in our hearts. And so
Exactly.
when we struggle with them, it hurts like a lot, because it's like it's part of ourselves. Like it's us
Yeah,
putting ourselves out there. And another thing
exactly.
too is when we celebrate, many entrepreneurs, and I used to be one of them, we don't celebrate,
No,
right? We're like,
no.
oh, I did this, and okay, on to the next, right? Like I used to have
Right?
this special bottle of wine that I kept forever, and I was like, okay, when I do this, I'm going to open it. And so then I would
Mm-hmm.
do it, and I'd be like, not big enough. And I'd go on to the
Mm,
next one, and then I'd be like, not
yeah.
big enough. I had that for like a couple years until finally I
Mm-hmm.
was like, we're just going to celebrate all the goals.
It's all of
But
them now.
yeah, but I was like, this is ridiculous. I had that forever. The wine's going to go bad before I ever finally, it's enough,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I think that's really important in that safe space as well, to have someone that's not only going to hold you accountable, but remind you to celebrate. And I have had so many amazing colleagues and friends that would remind me, because I'm very goal oriented. So it's easy to be just like what you said, where it's just like, okay, achieve that, on to the next. Because that's what we do as event planners on paper. We check something off when we're on to the next thing. And so having those reminders and someone that's close to you that can also see that sees that you're like, okay, did this and then on to the next, can also
yeah.
help you pause and really celebrate the big and the small wins, because those are all important. And sometimes as entrepreneurs, we skip past those. So it's really important. So it's a great point you brought up there too.
Yeah. All right, so we are coming right to the close to the end here, but I wanted to ask you if you have a message or piece of advice that you'd like to leave the audience with today.
Mm, there's so many things I feel like I could share. So many things I want to share. I think the biggest reminder that I want to give entrepreneurs is create in your business with fun and play in mind. Think about what makes you feel playful in your business, because if you are stuck trying to do something that is not bringing you joy, you're going to have the hardest time selling it. But I swear to you, if you're having fun creating something and you're having fun sharing about something, you will sell it no problem to those that are ready for that offer. Because if it's a product or service, if you can show up and share about it and have fun in your business, your audience is going to connect with that. And connect and nurture your community. Connect with who you already have there. Start conversations, check in on them, see what they're up to, see how they're doing. Doesn't mean, go out and start conversations to pitch something. Just create genuine connection in your community, in those relationships. And if you don't have relationships with new followers, one thing I love to do is send a message. And I do not mean a generic message to new followers. I mean a genuine message saying, thank you so much. I noticed this on your page. Sometimes it's tricky if, say, they're private accounts, but quite often I get other business owners following me. So I will go and I will, if it's a brand that doesn't have an entrepreneurial name on the page, I will go to their website, look for their name, and then send them a message with their name on it. And sometimes I will send them a message and say, I couldn't find your name anywhere, so I'm not sure who exactly I'm talking to, but I want to say hi. And then they'll share their name, and then we go from there. And I say, it's so great to meet you. Like, I love working with women entrepreneurs or supporting them, and it's great to learn about your brand and business and your why. So creating genuine connections, reach out, do those, send a message, send a voice message, and just don't forget to have fun. Bring joy into your business, bring happiness and fun and playfulness into your business. And I promise you, you will succeed in so many ways.
Oh, I love that so much. Honestly, thank you so much for coming on today, for sharing your time, for your sharing your expertise, your heart, everything. Like, I really, really appreciate you talking to us about everything. Like, we covered a lot. So for the listeners that are looking to dive deeper into Ashley's coaching, her VIP days, her upcoming luxury retreat, where can everybody find you?
Yes. Okay. So most people will know this about me. And if you're new to me, the best place to find me is Instagram, because that's where I love spending most of my time. And if you DM me and I don't get back to you right away, I do apologize, but I will always get back to you as soon as I can. But if you have any questions about anything I'm doing, please feel free to DM me anytime. Instagram is the best place to find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much for having me. I know we have so much in common, and I knew we'd have such a fun conversation. So thank you for diving so deep into all of this, and always bringing up what I enjoy talking about. It. As you could probably tell, it lights me up to talk about all of this, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to come on and talk about all of this with your community as well, and hopefully inspire them.
It honestly was so amazing, and I cannot wait to continue to see what you're creating and coming up with
Oh,
next.
thank you so much, Jen.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, that episode was incredible. There's so many things that I took away from this, so I wanted to sum up a few of them, but I really loved Ashley's 1 day goals. I think they're really, really powerful, especially when we do always say 1 day. And so why not take these 1 day goals and then break them down into actionable steps? I feel like it's such an impactful way to get to our 1 day goals versus always leaving them way far ahead. Another thing that I love that she talked about is to bring the fun back into our business, to stop being I love the strategy and the mindset and all that stuff that comes with businesses, but I love the fact that she always brings it back to fun, because it can be overwhelming, and there's things that I love about my business, and even myself, I allow the overwhelm to take over versus just enjoying it, because we are in business because we love what we do. So why not focus on the fun parts of our business instead of the parts that overwhelm us? And that actually makes us more energetic, more vibrant, we bring in more of our dream clients just because we're having fun and enjoying it. I also love when she talked about events, about bringing people on for the journey. I just think that it really is something that I've loved to do and probably don't even do enough of. And I think I'm going to continue to do more of that, but to start sharing more of the planning behind the events, because obviously that's what I love teaching, is how to create events that create experiences. But how can we bring people along the journey to help us come up with ideas to make the events more powerful, more incredible, and more impactful? And then finally, I really love this, and we should all know this, and we do all know this, but we always think in growth mode when we're entrepreneurs. So instead of thinking about our community, let's say on Instagram, as we have this many followers, take this many followers and just love them. Appreciate who they are, get to know who they are, find out what they love, show that you're invested in them, and that just creates this incredible community that adores you because you really do truly adore them. And sometimes we get so caught up in the growth and the hustle and everything of what we have to post on Instagram that we forget to just appreciate the people that are around us already, because they are incredible people who are already listening and wanting to know more from us. So let's give them that. So those are my takeaways from this episode. Honestly, it was like beyond what I could ever even have thought of. If you're ready to take your entrepreneurial journey to the next level and connect with a community that truly gets you, we would love to welcome you into the Bold Founders community. Imagine surrounding yourself with motivated, like-minded entrepreneurs gaining access to powerful resources, expert insights, and opportunities to collaborate with each other and other bold thinkers. And don't forget, tickets for the Be Bold experience are now available. You can join us for a full day of inspiration, practical workshops, and meaningful connections that can transform your business. If you'd like to be a guest on the Bold Entrepreneur podcast, or have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to hear your story and explore how we can make bold moves together. Have such a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Bold Entrepreneur podcast. I hope you're walking away with inspiration, fresh insights, and a few takeaways to fuel your journey. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other bold founders and entrepreneurs in your circle. And when you're ready to elevate your business, check out the Bold Founders Collective. From community support to strategic resources and personalized coaching, we are here to help you thrive. Remember, the bold moves you make today will shape the future you're dreaming of. So stay tuned for our next episode where we'll dive into deeper stories of strategies and mindset shifts that all make the difference. Until next time, stay bold, keep dreaming, and keep moving towards what lights you up.